Kate, take us through this idea.
Look, fundamentally what we're suggesting is revenue contingent loans, and that is loans to small businesses, those small businesses that continue to struggle. You know, those are in areas like tourism, people affected by border closures, hospitality and CBDs, cinemas, events operations. There's certain parts of the economy that really aren't recovering all that quickly. And of course, luckily, there's parts of the economy that are. So we're talking about those businesses that are still struggling, that a loan would be available, that they would only pay back when their revenue exceeds a particular amount. As you know, with HECS, you only pay it back when your wages exceed a particular level. So we're suggesting that these revenue contingent loans would help small businesses as JobKeeper finishes in March, as increasingly rent reductions finish, as banks are starting to expect, understandably, loans to be paid back, so's the ATO. And many of these businesses at this stage simply are going to struggle to manage without access to cash.
Yeah, and that March deadline, of course, is coming very soon. Kate, is this another debt, though, for small businesses who right now probably wouldn't be able to take on more debt?
Look, what we're suggesting is that for businesses to be eligible for a revenue contingent loan, they'd need to have a viability assessment via their accountant or certified bookkeeper. There are some businesses that their business simply wouldn't handle another loan, and possibly some hard decisions are going to need to be made about the business generally. But that's a fairly small number. There are lots of businesses that have very real futures. They've just got to get through the next 6 months or so. And for those businesses, a loan that they only end up paying when their revenue is above a particular level gives them the confidence that they can take on that sort of debt and won't be hit if there's another close down, if there's another border closure. You know, we saw over the Christmas, New Year, January period, businesses that were just sweating on that January trade, Christmas January trade, you know, in some of the tourist areas around the borders and so on, that was the thing that was going to get them over the line. And of course, literally overnight, borders were closed again, tourists went home, and they're all sitting there with all the stock, all of the stuff that they bought into their businesses to be able to service that group of people, and they've got no customers again. So the dilemma for small businesses, many, is this is a roller coaster ride. You know, they're doing well one day, then there's a close down and not so well the next. So for these sorts of loans, they'd only pay them back. The interest would be minimal, the same sort of interest that the federal government can borrow money at, and they'd only pay when their revenue was above an agreed amount. That could be something like 80% of pre-COVID levels, a level that they believe that they could make repayments on. Just gives businesses the confidence that they need to keep going. And, you know, many of them are pretty depressed at the moment.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the feedback, particularly from the tourism industry, as you said. You mentioned there minimal interest, but would it still be another cost to the government?
Look, what we're suggesting is these are loans, that there would be some interest, just like there is on HECS. And so it's not a handout, it's not another grant. And let's be fair, there's a lot of businesses that aren't going to survive post-JobKeeper finishing and commercial rent reductions finishing, unless there is something that comes in at this stage. Because as we saw over the last month, lots of businesses aren't out of the woods yet, and it's not their fault. You know, it's not their fault that borders are closing, that governments have to shut down various parts of cities and so on. So we've got to help these businesses get through. And again, we're suggesting a viability assessment first, because we fully accept that just giving businesses that really have no future extra debt is not in anybody's best interest, not in the government or the taxpayers' best interest, but not in the businesses' best interest either. You know, we need to support those businesses in closing. It's great to see the federal government pass new laws that will make insolvencies quicker and less expensive for those businesses that simply aren't going to survive. But that, again, is only a small number. There's a large number of businesses that are just going to struggle until we get past the ups and downs that we're seeing of COVID at the moment. And for, say, the travel agents, until international borders are reopened, in the education sector, until we really start seeing international students again, for those businesses, they're great businesses, but they're just not going to be great for the next little while, and we've got to support them during that time.
Kate, I want to ask you about the vaccine. Do you believe that
Sure.
employers should compel workers to get the COVID jab?
Look, I think for employers, the important thing is to have real clarity of what's expected from them. So what is a COVID-safe workplace? And for employers, they've got to be confident that if they do what the government tells them to do, what the health advice is, what social distancing looks like, what they should be doing in their businesses, then they will not be held liable if a staff member, or for that matter a customer, catches COVID in the business. And that's not all that clear at the moment. That workplace health and safety requirements don't flow into the COVID space. So first of all, really, really clear guidelines. I think employers should be able to have policies in their businesses, and it will depend on the business. If you've got a business where social distancing isn't possible, where it's not possible possibly to wear masks all the time, it might be absolutely fundamental to be able to require your staff to have vaccines. And so again, there's got to be clarity of what the legal requirements or the legal obligations small businesses have in those sort of situations. If you can separate a staff member who hasn't been vaccinated from the rest of the staff, well, that's fantastic. But, in lots of businesses you can't. So what all small businesses are after is clarity. What's required of them, what they need to do, and what powers they have if they've got, say, 10 employees, 9 who are vaccinated, 1 who isn't, and the 9 employees say they don't want to work with that person who's not vaccinated. What are the legal obligations of an employer under those circumstances? And we need to solve this now, not wait until after March when more people are vaccinated and it becomes a very real problem.
An interesting few months ahead. Kate Carnell, thank you.
Thanks very much.